This is what I learned from speaking to the director of a company that was doing over $160 million a year in revenue. In this video, I'm going to be taking you through the 6 biggest takeaways from our conversation so you can apply the exact same thing to scale your agency the right way. I'm a student of the game. Whenever I get a chance to sit down and learn from someone who's more experienced than me, I basically shut up and listen. So hopefully this video is as valuable to you and your agency as that initial conversation was for me. Now, the first initial point that really stood out to me was the fact that you don't want to have any terminals in your agency. And by the way, guys, before I actually forget, if you're wondering how this random guy in an orange hoodie actually managed to snake his way onto the school, my name's Leo. I'm the CEO and founder of Fluxomate. We run an operation agency that helps leading 7-figure agencies making all the way up to $300K a month improve the backend system so they can make more money. The whole reason I got into school in the first place is because one of our partners from a program actually was kind enough to invite me to the school. Now, I know to respect everyone's privacy, I won't be revealing any specific information or any names. However, I can guarantee that about 60% of you guys in the marketing space right now have either used this company or at least know of them. But anyways, that's enough about that. Let's talk about terminals. So a terminal is basically a point at which a conductor from a component, device, or network comes to an end. That's the kind of scientific definition, but in all reality, we don't really care about this, right? How can we actually apply this to the agency? So in this example, when we're talking about terminals, we're talking specifically about client terminals. And these are basically points within a customer journey where a client's journey or lead's journey comes to an end. The key principle about this is that we don't want any terminals because they just lead to a basically stockpile of leads, clients, let's say contacts that basically just get left there without anything to do. An example of this could be in your sales process. Let's say you have a process that qualifies leads and unqualified leads cause get automatically cancelled. If you're not doing anything with those unqualified leads, that's basically just a pool of contacts which are no use to you and are just kind of sitting there. One of the key things this director actually mentioned is that throughout the client or the leads journey, for example, you don't want to have any terminals where there's basically a stockpile of leads that just get left there for no reason. So for example here, let's say we identified a client journey from them being a new lead to them actually being closed. Let's say there's 3 potential stages, whether it's qualified, whether they're not interested, whether they're not ready, where you basically have this kind of stockpile of leads that you don't do anything with. Dead ends, basically dead ends within a client journey. And the key thing is that you don't want to have any of these. So rather than, for example, when you're unqualified lead just leaving them there, you can go and add them to an email list. You can add them to a follow-up list maybe. These are obviously just examples, but the key principle is that you basically don't want to leave them there just to dry out. There's no point actually spending one of these contacts if you're doing marketing, even cold outreach maybe, and just leaving them there. You've already acquired them, so you might as well use them in the future, and using different things like email lists or follow-ups are a great way to do that and avoid having these terminals in your business. Me personally, if I'm being 100% honest, within my own agency, I had so many different terminals. Whether lead were unqualified, I would basically just leave them there. Let's say leads were not fit or they weren't interested for the right time, I would never follow up. And implementing this simple tactic of basically cultivating those terminals and fixing them and adding those leads in some sort of follow-up system or nurturing system has really helped me increase conversion rates and actually use all the different leads that I get. So imagine the impact that this can actually have on your business in terms of increasing your ad spend ROI, improving your close rate from cold outreach, wherever it may be. The second point I want to talk about today is that your list matters, guys. Your list is very important. And just be clear, when I say your list, I mean basically your collection through your CRM, your different ad audiences, your email list, which is super important. Let's say a list of different community members, if you have a community on school or whatnot, or even your social media following, right? Because I'll tell you a secret, guys. The bigger your list actually is, the more money it's actually worth. So you want to make sure you invest a lot of time in actually building and maintaining your list. And a key part here is that terminals are a great example of a way for you to actually maintain your list, because this is very linked to this. You don't just want to have a list of contacts that are there for no reason, because if you do this and, for example, you have a bunch of terminals and you just have a collection of contacts that haven't been contacted within the last 6 months, they will have no clue who the hell you are, and that basically means they're not worth muching. You don't want a cold list, you want a warm list. And doing different things such as patching up those terminals that we talked in the last step is an easy way to increase the value of lists, because you want to make sure they actually know who you're talking to. So this is a very important point. And funny enough, a lot of different agencies that we speak to on a daily basis, they don't have any sort of marketing list that they can actually refer to. Don't get me wrong, they have ad audiences, but they don't really look after them unless they're actually spending or retargeting them with different ads. They have email lists, but they're never really using it. They're not sending any sort of nurture emails. And when you first get started, it doesn't really matter. These are more so kind of high level points that you can really use if down the line you want to go to an investor or you want to go to someone that wants to acquire your agency. You need to show them all of these different things. So the sooner you start building your list, the easier it will be. And once again, guys, this can be anything from a CRM, different ad audiences list, an email list, which would probably be the easiest thing to do, maybe even a community list or even a social media following. Like, for example, this YouTube channel could potentially be a list. My school community could potentially be a list. There's just different examples of it. But yeah, second point is that your list really, really does matter, and there was a massive emphasis on this, and you're going to see how this kind of interlinks to the different points when we talk about in a second. The third point, which to me personally was the most interesting, because I haven't really heard of this too much before, but it was that joint ventures are key, and they're basically the key to actually scaling. Now, if you're like me, you didn't exactly know what a joint venture was, don't worry. A joint venture is basically just a fancy word for a collaboration between two or more parties who basically pool together their resources, such as the email list or customer bases, to actually promote a product or service and share the results profiting. So for example, you would get your list and combine it with another agency or some sort of service provider, and then together you'd basically assemble and then share the profits from a specific marketing campaign or wherever else it may be. This is the exact same thing that Conor McGregor did when he actually fought Floyd Mayweather. The UFC and boxing basically combined, and together they actually ended up scraping a $600 million payout. So not bad at all. Honestly, this is one of the points they really emphasized. And now that I look back at it, if we look at $100 million leads, which is that beautiful book right over there, this is the exact same thing that Alex talked about when it came to making partners to actually collect your joint ventures. Now, one of the key things that you actually need to go to when you're looking for these different joint ventures, and also actually make sure it's easy for you to spot these different win-wins. When you go looking for people, you want to make sure you have your stats, or at least have an indication of what stats you're looking for. This is different things such as open rates, the click-through rate, conversion rate, engagement rate, the size of your actual audience. So when you actually find these partners, and I'm sure there's agencies that kind of do this for you, but when you actually find these partners, it'll make your life a lot easier to spot whether it's a win-win for both of you, which is the most important bit. Now, at first, I didn't really think this kind of applied too much to my specific situation, just because we are more so on the smaller side. And for small, I mean anyone doing less than $1 million a year. However, the truth is that this applies to a ton of different businesses. You don't need to have a massive email list before you start going down the road of doing these joint ventures. So as long as you find someone that can help you solve your clients' pain points, you can partner up with them, and then from there you can kind of form some sort of association and get more leads, right? There's no harm in kind of combining people, potentially not directly with your competitors. And to be honest, I'm not a massive expert on joint ventures, so I recommend you do a lot more research on this. But this is something that really stood out to me, and I'm really, really looking to implement this at some point throughout my agency journey to actually help us grow. Because if you can actually leverage someone else's list, this is us leveraging someone else's nurtures. This is us leveraging someone else's work that we actually put in to actually build this list. And once again, the goal is to make this a win-win for everyone. So we need to actually provide something valuable to their list as well. For example, if I was doing this, and the way I'm planning on actually doing this within the near future is basically pairing up with some sort of marketing agency that more so focuses on acquisition. For context, we work more on the back end, but inevitably, if someone focuses more on acquisition, they're going to get more leads, they're going to get more clients, and then from that, they're going to begin struggling with the back-end operations, which is kind of where we jump in. So my goal is to basically partner with someone that has a massive list of these agency owners who are getting to the point where the acquisition is getting really, really good, and then that's where we kind of come in. And the key part is I'm trying to figure out how we can make a win-win for everyone, but I'll keep you guys updated with that throughout the YouTube channel. So that's the third point, joint ventures. The fourth thing I actually want to talk about is the use of inflection points. Now, once again, if you're like me and you didn't know what inflection points was, you probably do know, you just don't know the fancy word for it. Inflection points are basically the moment when a relationship between a client and a business reaches a mutually beneficial balance, where both the client achieves the desired outcome and the business sees sustainable value, such as long-term revenue or profit. Think of this as a funnel for different clients. You start off in kindergarten, where you get told that from kindergarten, you're going to go ahead and actually find your school or your secondary school, high school, whatever you Americans call it. From high school, you basically need to go ahead and do your further education, which in the UK is A levels. From A levels, you then have to go to do university, and then from university, you then go ahead and actually do your masters. In most cases, in education, at least in the UK, the inflection point is usually university. And that's where, throughout the whole kind of education system, they're trying to nurture you to actually go in towards university and getting your degree so you can get your job. And your goal is basically to find that inflection point, which is basically, once again, the goal that you want to take any new client through, and basically mapping out that process so you make it a win-win for everyone and make it really easy for you to actually get that win-win for people. So throughout the whole process, when you actually have that sort of inflection point within your agency, from the very very beginning, you can begin nurturing people. The same thing, once again, you do in school throughout the education process. When you're a kid, you get told, okay, you need to go to the school with the big boys. Once you're in secondary school, then they start talking about A levels and which A levels you want to pick. And then once you're A levels, the whole focus kind of changed onto university and making sure that you actually go to university to get your degree, get your job, all of that stuff. This right here is the inflection point. Once again, throughout the whole process from start to finish, the educational system, which is the same thing you can apply to your agency, basically nurtures the kids, or in this case will be your clients, to actually reach that inflection point. So your goal right now is to basically go ahead and actually find the inflection point in your agency. When is that point in your client delivery where there's a win-win in terms of what your client actually gets in terms of value and what you actually get in terms of long-term revenue or maybe loyalty and whatnot? This has been super beneficial to me. For context, we have a program, it takes about 6 months. After that, we do ongoing maintenance. And I was battled with basically finding that inflection point. What is that point where it's a win-win for us and the clients? And just even taking a second to actually go through my client journey, go through our fulfillment process and actually identifying it really helped. Because when I was kind of mapping out the client journey from the very beginning, right? And this doesn't have to necessarily be a client being closed. This can even be throughout the YouTube videos I actually do, right from the start of the lease process. I can begin to nurture up to that specific program. And that's kind of what we've been working on so far. And this ties in very heavily to this point right here. Point number 5 is that you need a back-end offer. This is not an option, guys. Any lead that comes to you had desire. For example, if you're a lead agency, a desire might be to get 10 points a day. If you're a reputation agency, a desire might be to get featured in Forbes. If you're legal services, you might want to be your legal case. If you're an operational agency, like me, the goal is to sell scale-proof systems. And if you're gym launch, for example, your goal is to add 100K to your gym. Your job is basically to help your specific lead find that desire. But after you actually get them that desire, you basically say bye to them, and this isn't right. There's no point in actually doing this. For example, guys, Gym Launch, they have a 16K offer, which takes about 16 weeks, and this is their front-end offer. They help reach that desire of actually growing the gym. But when they actually help gym owners reach that desire, they don't just say bye and just leave the gym owners there. They basically send them to another offer, which is about 40K a year. And this is the back-end offer that I want you guys to actually build out. Because once again, as soon as someone has a problem, and you actually solve that problem, from that solution of the new problem, they're going to have more problems. And your job is not basically just to leave them there, which once again is not really valuable for them anyways, but you will basically keep on helping them until they elevate their problem. And I'll give you guys a lot of examples of what this actually looks like. For example, in a lead gen agency, let's say the initial goal is to get 10 appointments a day. Once you actually get people those 10 appointments a day, realistically, what they're going to do, they're going to need closers that actually closes the appointments. And then even from that, you can go and elevate to another offer. Another example could be in a reputation agency, or let's say legal services. If the initial service was to beat someone's case, after that, they may need ongoing legal coverage. Or let's say for operational agency, after we actually set up those scale-proof substances, we want to make sure they actually maintain and they help with hiring and whatnot. So these are basically back-end offers, and this ties in heavily to the point of not having any sort of terminals within the business, because even a client being served at the very end of their client journey, that is a terminal, right? And having this back-end offer is basically a way for us to elevate that and get rid of that terminal and basically help them with more of their problems that they're going to inevitably be faced as they reach that new level. Every solution will have more problems and that kind of loops, and you want to make sure that you're there to help them in that loop, or else it's just going to go to someone else. You've already spent that money on them in actually acquiring that lead, so you might as well use it to the most of its value. And once again, guys, don't think of this as you kind of scraping your customers for all the money they have, because that's not really the case, because they're going to inevitably need those services from someone else. So if you can actually help them and you know exactly what you're doing, there's no reason for you not to do it. And once again, I mean, this is where you could actually partner with different people, but that's kind of a story for another day. So that's the 5th point. The last point is split into 2 different things. It's to do with assigning KPIs and also bonuses. But these things are kind of joined together, so I thought I'd include them in one. The first thing is that you actually need to assign KPIs. Now, if you watched the channel before, this is something I talked about in previous videos, right? Where each KPI basically needs to be assigned to a specific employee. But one thing that I found really interesting from this school is that when they were talking about KPIs, they talk about different tiers of KPIs. And basically, each employee is basically assigned to a specific tier of that KPI. So for example, an executive will be assigned to the biggest tier, which could, for example, could be, I don't know, throughput, or let's say money that's coming in. A manager would be assigned to an individual tier, which for example could be something like close rates. And then an employee could be assigned to a tier 1 kind of KPI, which could be something like, I don't know, setting rate. It's the same sort of goal as being persuaded through these different KPIs, but you can see as the kind of level of kind of managerial expertise goes down, the KPI gets more and more specific as to what the employee or the manager or the executive is actually sort of in charge of. Another thing that really is really interesting, and one of the lessons I actually learned, was when it comes to actually tracking KPIs. What they actually had was this basic KPI table, and within there you had a massive list of all the different KPIs, and it's on a Google sheet. It wasn't anything complicated, but within there you had the KPI name, the KPI level, level, the different assigned employees to the actual KPI, the definition of the KPI, and most importantly, how it's tracked and where it's actually tracked. This basically made it so that you bring all your different pieces of information into one singular location. So let's say, for example, if you're looking for a specific metric, rather than having to open up 3 different scorecards, 2 different softwares, and I don't know, 4 or 5 different Google Sheets, you can just go to this KPI table and easily find that specific KPI. And guys, that's pretty much it. Those are the 6 biggest takeaways that I learned from a company doing over $160 million a year in revenue. Hopefully, I did a good job in actually communicating the importance of each of these individual takeaways and how you can actually apply them to your agency to scale the right way. And once again, guys, even though this might not necessarily be the best kind of investment of your time for beginners, or say anyone doing less than 10K a month, if you get to the point where you're doing more than 10K a month, 20K a month, 30K a month, and you're actually starting to build your business, keeping in mind these things is going to make your life a lot easier in the future. Because let's say one day you want to go to an acquirer or you want to start joint ventures. If you, from the very beginning, you do different things such as get rid of any terminals in your client's journey or begin to actually build your email list, it's going to be a lot easier to do these different things. So once again, the whole reason I kind of recorded this video, even though it's very different to my usual content in terms of automations, operations, all of that good stuff, is because I wish I would have known this earlier in my agency journey. So I thought I might as well share with you guys. If you went ahead and found this valuable, make sure to like, subscribe. We post content every single week going over how you can actually improve the backend systems in your agency. And also, if you are new here and this is the first time you've seen this guy in the orange hoodie, then check out the links in the description. We have a ton of different free resources here that you can access to improve the backend systems in your agency. Before you leave, I really strongly recommend you don't stop your learning here. We have a ton of different videos on my channel, specifically this one, which goes over the most important KPI that you need to track in your agency. I would really recommend watching that video and following that tutorial in order to actually set up the tracking for that KPI, because it can have a massive impact on your client success. Apart from that, guys, that's it from me today. Let me know if you have any questions, and yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.